You know, what single force has the power to build nations and then turn around and tear them apart? To free millions of people, but also fuel the most devastating wars in human history? Well, the answer is nationalism. And its impact on the 20th century was, to put it lightly, massive and incredibly complicated. So let's dive in and unpack this.
Okay, so what exactly is nationalism? At its heart, it's a really powerful feeling of love and pride for your country. And honestly, a great way to think about it is like cheering for your favorite sports team. It's that same sense of unity, of shared identity, we're all in this together, just scaled up to an entire nation.
But here's the thing. This intense loyalty, it is a true double-edged sword. As we're about to see, throughout the 20th century, it acted as a force for both incredible creation and catastrophic destruction. You've got two completely opposite outcomes, all sprouting from the very same idea. It's kind of wild when you think about it.
I love this metaphor. Imagine nationalism as a spice. A little bit can bring people together. It adds this rich, amazing flavor to a culture. But if you use way too much, it becomes toxic. It just ruins everything. So let's explore what happens when that spice becomes a poison. This is where that national pride starts to curdle and turn into real peril. The idea of us becomes a weapon used against them, and this feeling of superiority just fuels conflict on a devastating global scale.
So before World War I, Europe was basically a pressure cooker of competing nationalisms. Every country thought they were the best, and what you see here, this is the spark that lit the fuse. A Serbian nationalist fighting for his people's independence assassinates an Austro-Hungarian royal. And that one act of political violence set off a domino effect of alliances, pulling the entire continent into the most brutal war the world had ever seen up to that point.
And then, just a couple of decades later, this same force was weaponized in an even more horrific way. Adolf Hitler took that natural pride that Germans felt for their country and twisted it into this poisonous ideology of racial superiority. He used it to convince millions of people that they were destined to dominate others, and that became the engine for the unimaginable devastation of World War II.
And that's exactly what it was. It was like a fire. When it's contained, a fire gives you warmth and light, that sense of community and shared purpose. But when it rages out of control, like it did in the first half of the 20th century, it just consumes everything and everyone in its path.
But that's only half the story. It's the really dark half. Now, let's flip the coin and see how this very same force became a powerful tool for liberation and freedom for millions.
Right, so if destructive nationalism was an out-of-control fire, then constructive nationalism was the key that unlocked the chains of colonialism. It became this incredibly powerful rallying cry for people all over the globe to demand their own self-determination.
After World War II, this amazing wave of nationalism just swept across Asia and Africa. In places like India, Indonesia, all across the African continent, people developed this really strong sense of their own national identity, and they demanded the right to govern themselves. And this led to the birth of dozens of new, independent nations. It completely reshaped the map of the world.
You can even see the Cold War through this same lens. At its core, it was a clash of two superpowers, and each one was driven by this fervent belief that their system, whether it was American democracy or Soviet communism, was the best path forward for all of humanity. This global competition of ideas, all fueled by intense national pride, defined the entire second half of the century.
So when we put it all together side by side like this, the paradox becomes crystal clear. On one hand, nationalism can be this amazing force for unity, for independence, for creating new nations. But on the other hand, it can breed this sense of superiority, leading to conflict, war, and total destruction. The very same impulse, with completely different results.
But hey, this isn't just a history lesson. Nationalism is just as powerful a force today as it ever was. So where do we see its influence in our own lives, right now?
Well, we see its two-sided nature everywhere, really. It's in that unifying pride we all feel when we're watching our athletes at the Olympics. That's the good stuff. But it's also in the rise of populist political movements that often draw a hard line between us and them. And all of this is happening in a world that's more globalized than ever, where being so interconnected is constantly challenging our traditional ideas of what a national identity even means.
So, what's the big takeaway here?
I think it's that understanding this dual nature of nationalism, its power to create and its power to destroy, is absolutely crucial for navigating the world we all live in today.
And that really leaves us with a final essential question. How do we find that balance? How can we celebrate our own unique cultures and our national identities without falling into that trap of superiority and conflict? In our super-connected world, that's really the great challenge of our time.